Okay, are we running? No. I look a little bright today. Oh my God, that's no good. Well, I can't get it to work. I always have fun trying to get it to launch. But that's the way it is. If you want to do live streams, go ahead. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Oh, that's the old version. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's get to the news. I got a lot to cover today. Okay, and what happened to the news? I closed the window. Okay, so this young lady has a positive pregnancy test, and her world's going to turn upside down. And I just thought this was a really interesting ad from the UK about, well, you'll see. Okay, here we go. She's looking around. She's wondering if she should tell her husband and her son, I think that is. And all of a sudden, the world's turning upside down. How cool is this? Look at everything falling apart. Now she goes out the window. She pulls on the garden hose to climb the wall. Look at this. Up she goes.
I will sit right down, waiting for the gift of sound and vision.
How about this? Now she goes back to the house.
Waiting for the gift of sound and vision.
Isn't this great? I don't know. I like it. And now the house is back in order, and she shows them the new nursery they need because she's expecting. And what it's about is DIY. It's about renovating your home and changing it when life changes, which is really the way it works. Nobody just decides to make changes. They come upon us, and we need to fix things. So anyway, that's a really clever ad, and it's the kind of thing that makes you feel good about being in marketing and advertising. I think it does. Just giving people ideas of how they can get help when they need it. So that's a thought for today. Now let's get over to the regular news and see what's what there. Okay, that's the flip. Okay, this was an interesting. Oops, this isn't the one I wanted to go next. I want to go this one. Printing United Alliance cautions fast-track approval of American Data Privacy and Protection Act. So now after CCPA and whatever they called it in Colorado, we have the ADPPA. ADPPA. And basically the article says that there is a problem with the patchwork of data privacy laws, and the Printing Alliance has urged caution in railroading this through because there's a patchwork included of state law preemption. So the point of it is to solve the complexity of trying to do business in California and Colorado and anywhere else. Illinois has some privacy laws that have gotten facial recognition companies in trouble. But these are given preeminence in the law, which means that potentially any state can get you in trouble with their view of what privacy means in spite of the federal regulation. It basically encourages it. The other thing is that there's a private right of action where individuals can sue companies for, and that's just a whole kettle of opens a can of worms in how that's managed when sort of anybody can sue anybody. And so, but basically they're just saying there just simply isn't enough time for Congress to thoroughly examine and negotiate this critical legislation because it's going to impact multiple industries and have both intended and unintended consequences. Of course, if we worried about unintended consequences, no legislation would ever pass. It seems that one of the things legislatures are really good at is ignoring the unintended consequences. But anyway, worth reading, especially if you're in the print industry. Then the next article I wanted to talk about is Tony McEwen, Why Printers Should Take Data Security Very Seriously. And, you know, this is, Tony has put together, she obviously did interviews with a number of leading print people. David Spencer, president of Spencer Metrics, had quite a bit to say about how important data is. I thought it was quite overstated. Data represents truth. Of course, data without context misrepresents truth. Where you are and where you've been, and can be the basis for where you should go next. Except tomorrow will be like yesterday, except if it isn't. So anyway, and you know that's my thing, is the epistemology of data. Tony reiterates the hodgepodge of data laws around the country and settles on two basic ways to think about data. And the first is hygiene and making sure you get. Now, there's a real big, Tony conflates this, and I think it's partly because she's trying to pull together all the differing views that she found from the different printers and data companies. But if the direct mail campaign isn't going to the right demographics, the right addresses, or the right names, very, very, very different issues, right? Because, I mean, I remember when a friend who ran a data purge, data hygiene company, someone managed to not look at the address lines. And so the person's name was on it, and the city-state zip, which means that it was deliverable to the individual post office. It just wasn't deliverable to the house. And so it went through the data hygiene, it went through the printer, got inkjetted on a couple of 100,000 catalogs. I know the company and the owner of the company who then got a couple of phone calls from USPS saying we can't deliver these catalogs of yours, and basically it was the whole country, and there was some kind of settlement. But that was where the addresses weren't right. They just were not right. And that's bad. That's really bad. Okay? Because the whole mailing was scrapped. And but the right demographics is a whole nother it's a different kettle of fish, right? It's modeling, it's segmentation. So anyway, that one sentence probably combines both perspectives on data. And she has a bunch of industry leaders. Carol Schilly from IWCO Direct says that companies are interested in hygiene, merge, purge, and pre-sorting, highly valued processes in the overall flow of a project. That's pretty simple to get done. And if you're a printer and you're not offering that, I would say you should, because I'm trying to remember out in Sun Prairie, we got a company that'll just turn that around in literally seconds. So if you're not offering that to your customers, you should. And I'll put a note in the show notes of the company name and who you can call over there. They have a really highly automated system. It's great. You just upload a file and download the address standardization, and they can do. Now, merge purge is a lot about managing multiple lists, and most mailers don't even start with multiple lists anymore. So that's a little different. That's it's more about management and keeping all the files straight and all that. So, but again, hygiene, not really the geodemographics of things. The second is data security, entirely different, right? George Forge from Quad talks about their integration of data with multiple vendors and that sort of thing. And here's an ad that basically has too much white space and doesn't tell you what it's about before it got clipped off. It's and then says it's not enough to have password protected server and call it a day. And for our servers, and we lived through all of that. We lived through, you didn't have to protect them at all, and then all of a sudden people were loading up images and bad things on your server so that they could save money and space and liability, and then you had to protect that. And finally, we just disconnected most of our servers from the internet. We get data on and off of them in particular ways. I'm not going to tell you how, but our main modeling servers with your client data just aren't connected. You'd have to come here physically, find the data. That would be a major effort in itself. Okay, so marketing partners consider data as the backbone for empowering brands. Consumers discover, explore, purchase, and provide feedback to brands through multiple data channels: social, search, TV, radio, in-store, out-of-home, and print, to name a few, Forge says. So I would say that there's a third way to think about data. Okay, the first is pure hygiene. The second is data security, and the third is how does the data get handled? How do you make money with data? And I would highly recommend John Miglosh's little book, Spinning Straw into Gold. It's out of print now in paperback, but still available in Kindle. And I'm working on a third edition of that. But basically, there's the use of data, which is different than the first two. Very, very different. So I would say that would be the way you fix this article. So anyway, it was helpful to get you thinking. A lot of good people are mentioned in here. Have a great day. Oops, no, we got one more to go. This one I liked too. Emily Christensen, and Emily is is like customer integration support or something at an agency in Rockford, Illinois, which is right around the corner from me. And they did the AR piece that I talked about a couple of months ago. And so they did some creative stuff that I've seen before. And she does a nice job of talking about things to do with headlines and with white space. But what I like the most, I'll skip right to this. She mentioned visual hierarchy, and I don't hear that much at all anymore. And it's super important in mail. It's important in websites also. I don't think it's even known anymore. Especially in e-commerce sites where every item is its own little box. There's no size referent. There's just the item sitting on the page by itself. And if you look at, and I keep this around for such time as this, if you look at, say, Bass Pro Shops as a counter example, and I'll probably forget to go on there, and I can just open to anything. Okay, so here's a bunch of here's a bunch of rubber worm ideas. Okay, and so we've got big view of the items over here. Okay, and then we've got a cross-reference over here to what the prices are, what the part numbers are, how you get a hold of that. And then we've got a guy fishing with a special bait, a special new featured bait down in the lower right-hand corner that gives you something interesting on the page that catches your eye at the bottom. And so many of the pages just super fun because they tell you, and here's a secondary color, here's a secondary item, and oftentimes the category itself is introduced with a story and a picture about how this is the perfect for steelhead or whatever he's catching in there. And you can literally do this on every page. There's a visual hierarchy, even when it's just a whole boatload of little lures. It's really difficult to make that fun, and they do. And that's what visual hierarchy is about. What I miss in this is, unlike, say, Craig Huey, she doesn't really give you examples and I took out the Brand United is really hard for me to capture because they have these things flowing around and stuff. And so she may have had examples. I don't see them. We could look that up. But she also doesn't have any test examples on how this beat that. And that's what I like about Craig Huey. He always has test examples that you can look to and you can say, okay, this makes sense. This is why it won. So, but all in all, love that she has given you some ideas on how to think about the page as a page rather than individual items. Think about how you work through the process of placing an order and other things with that visual hierarchy. It's crucially important to your design, and really nice to hear, a young person talking about visual hierarchy. Oh, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Jimmy's in Minnetonka. We're having a get together, and some people are worried. What do I have to bring? Is it, do I have to buy a ticket? It's a free ticket. Just come, and you can buy yourself a beer. You don't have to buy a beer. You can have water and just sit there, and we're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about what your challenges are. We're talking about whatever we feel like talking about. Just get to know each other. Think of it as just the cocktail party part of a big conference. We're going to sit at a table and just have a good time. And so we'd like to know how many are coming. I told Jimmy's I would try and get an idea, and I do have an idea, but just perfectly casual. And so if you're in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, or I'm driving 5 hours, if you're within 5 hours, it's the same drive as I've got, then drop in, and but please get over to wdma.org and register, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you.